Are you a manager who is eager to change the trajectory of your career? I have spent the last 23 years as a Fortune 50 leader learning from other industry leaders how to break free from limiting beliefs and habits. On the Might in Motion podcast, we focus on the 4 M's: motivation, momentum, mindfulness, and might. We bring you leaders from Fortune companies, doctors, and entrepreneurs. Their stories of living their own might in motion will inspire you to create your own action plan and achieve your goals. Welcome to Might in Motion. Today's episode of Might in Motion is brought to you by Pantheon FM, Fortunes Magnified. Pantheon FM is changing the world through entrepreneurship. In this community, you will find everything you need to create, amplify, and monetize your world-changing business. Join us at pantheon.community/register/LAUA. Today, I bring to you Eddie Colon. He's a leader, an entrepreneur, and a family man. Those are just a few words to describe who he is. Over the past decade, he has been blessed to be around amazing people and organizations who help provide valuable tools and resources to better himself and foster his professional growth. As a result, he's now on a mission to share these resources with other entrepreneurs and rising leaders. Eddie, welcome to Might in Motion.
Thank you. Excited to be on.
I am too. I mean, we talked a little bit in the green room how we met, which, in typical, I think, COVID fashion, we met on a Zoom call, but we weren't on the same Zoom call. You just happened to be at the table with somebody I was meeting with, and she introduced us. So I just think that's entertaining in and of itself.
Absolutely.
I'm excited to get to know you a little bit better. I mean, you as an entrepreneur, a leader, a family man. I can't wait to hear your story and how you ended up where you are today.
Excited to share whatever I can share and hopefully drop some gems to get everybody excited about being in leadership and continue to move forward.
So why don't you share a little bit about your leadership journey and what you're doing today and how that's helped you with your projects that you've got going on?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think my leadership journey really started off at an extremely young age. I just pretty much took it for granted. Even from my early days in high school, and granted, I'm dating myself a little bit because I'm almost 40 now. But even going way back to high school days, I was always tagged to be placed in some type of leadership role, whether it was captains of sports teams or student body presidents or any type of role. And even through college, I found myself in the same bubble. And I just thought it was a personality thing, or people just gravitated towards me, or it was just some natural swag that I had because coming from, being born and raised in New York. But as time progressed and I started really entering the real the world of actual professionalism, I started to really identify that there's more to it. And there was a passion that I had when it came to leadership. Unknowingly, I always found myself wanting to read professional development books or being interested in hearing books and podcasts and audios. But back then, just finding myself really interested in hearing from actual individuals in leadership. My journey through leadership really kind of bounced around. I spent a little bit of time as a leader with Verizon Wireless. Then I joined the military, and throughout the military, my 15 years in the Air Force, I found myself in multiple leadership roles. Even at a young age, rank-wise, from my very early tenureship, I found myself continuously in some type of leadership capacity, whether it was official or unofficial. I carried a lot of that over to any other role or job that I've ever had, whether it be working in the healthcare system as an inpatient coordinator and a system educator, or working in the sales industry in medical device and finding myself as a regional business director. In fact, funny story, I was in a role with the company that I was with, and I was a trainer. And I loved the job that I was doing. I thought it was amazing. And I thought I was doing an amazing job. And one day we had a brand new leadership team come in. I put them through training, and about midway through the week, and we're sitting down afterwards, just, spitballing and just talking, talking shop. And one of the leaders there, she's a VP, she looks at me, she goes, "So you won't be in this role for much longer." And I'm like, "Okay, interesting." She goes, "Yeah, you're not cut out for this role. You need to be in a leadership role." And so at first I took offense to it. And then I was like, "Oh, wait, she complimented me, I think." And at that point, I really started to open my eyes a little bit more. I guess you get to an age of professional maturity where you start to realize maybe I'm not in the right role. Maybe I'm shying away from some of my strengths and my talents. And I carried that journey for 7 years with a medical device company. And I knew that at one point, leadership was something that a lot of people take for granted. Everybody gets into the corporate America and they want to rush to a leadership position because of the stronger salary and the title and things like that. I never pursued anything like that. In fact, I had never ever applied for a leadership role in my entire life. I just found myself a couple months into a role and being transitioned into a leadership role. And it was one of those things where I knew that I couldn't take it for granted. I had to start respecting and understanding my strengths and start putting a lot of those tools that I've learned along the way into myself and into others around me. So from retail sales and education through healthcare, through medical sales, and now as an entrepreneur, I make sure that I instill all of these skills into the people that are around me as often as I can.
I love that. And, the military aspect, I think, is interesting because being in corporate America, sometimes we don't do a good job of connecting the dots of here's everything that this individual actually did in the military, because you learn a lot of leadership in those roles, to your point, at a very young age, that we don't do a good job of interpreting from resumes, but also from a military side. Not just a great job of actually translating what the jargon is into the real world. Do you ever find yourself coaching other military people who are wanting to exit the military, get into, the civil service space, and on how to actually either make that transition and or translate what their skill set is?
Absolutely. I found myself, and there was two capacities that I've seen it. One where a lot of military members want to transition and go into the sales side. You see this often with high performing type military members, right? Your special forces guys, your deltas, those high octane super alphas that are coming in, and this is usually a quick transition. It's no different than a college athlete that doesn't go pro that now wants to be in control of their income and they want to go into like a sales role or something like that. And so usually the conversations are, they know they can do anything because they're executioners, right? They can complete any task. They're structured. They can follow a process, but they're just not, to your point, talking the right language. And so many times I'm explaining to them that if they follow the basic instincts, the basic fundamentals that they follow through in the military, understanding structure, process, systems, regulations, or our equivalent to SOPs and standards, and they just follow them to the T, they'll supersede and exceed everyone around them. It's the reason that they're always so sought after. From a leadership perspective, it's around understanding when exactly do you put mission first versus your people first. And that's a hard part because in the military, it is mission first. Regardless of what's going on, whether you're in the medical side of the military or your operators out there, you have to complete the mission, then take care of your people, then follow through with everything else that's second and tertiary to that. And so on the corporate America side, you got to kind of wear two different hats. You got to support the people first because the people are helping you achieve the numbers, but you also got to keep people on track to hit those numbers. So it becomes a little bit of a tug and war, which is why sometimes it is a harder transition for military members to understand that tug and play.
But that same philosophy on mission first versus people first is the same problem that anybody moving from individual contributor into a manager is going to face. Because as an individual, you're just going after your target, right? If you're an individual contributor, you're writing the code, you're doing the project management, you're executing a certain amount of sales. But to your point, when you move into a leadership role, it really does become all about how you can lead your people and take care of them. Because when you do, they become ride or die. Like they will do anything for you and for the team as a whole. But when you don't, they will go against it.
1000%. I will tell you that my biggest claim to fame was probably the last team that I led. That team would have ran through brick walls for me, literally and figuratively, depending on the day and what we were doing, right? Yep. But it's because of the culture and the fact that they knew that I would go through brick walls for them as well. I am a very people-oriented person. I live vicariously through the success of others. It sounds a little corny and like a humble brag, but quite honestly, I'm not the guy that wants to be on stage receiving an award. I want to be behind the curtain watching my people walk across stage and getting President's Club awards and discipline execution, or being recognized by their peers and anyone else around them because they're putting the hard work and they're doing all those things. And just knowing that I played even the slightest role in helping them get moved from point A to point B means the world to me.
Yeah.
And so I live vicariously through their success. And I believe in a servant leadership model, which means you have to work. We work at the pleasure of our people. And so just knowing that, making me come second to my people goes such a long way. Again, they know the title, right? They know who has the authority. It doesn't necessarily need to be enforced, as people know that you're willing to get in the trenches with them, be a player's coach, and then really help them succeed. And once they buy into it, you're golden.
Yeah, I love that. Can you tell us a little bit on your business made easy mindset and, you know, what your organization does to help others?
Yeah, we, as cliche as it may sound, we're a one-stop shop for all your business needs. So regardless if you're looking to start a business, if you're a dreamer, you've already been in business for multiple years, our goal and our purpose is to help entrepreneurs and business owners start, launch, grow, and more importantly, succeed in the game of business. And a lot of that really comes down to giving them all the tools and fundamentals they need to succeed. So right now, just the world that we live in, we're inundated with resources. You can pop open YouTube or open up a podcast and learn everything you need to know without having to go to school and get an MBA. The problem is that none of that's really practical until they're part of podcasts like this and hearing how they can actually see the tactics along with some of those strategies, those principles. My goal is to sit down with everyone and really kind of solidify their foundation first and then teach them how to grow and scale. Go from the phase of dreaming about a business to the I phase of a business where I do everything, to the we phase where I hire someone and they work alongside with me, and then transition to the they phase where they can walk away from their business, go on vacation, put the phone on silent, and know when they come back that the building is still going to be up and revenue is still going to be coming in. And a lot of that takes a lot of time, effort. I can honestly say one of the two biggest challenges I find a lot of entrepreneurs struggling with are hiring the right talent and understanding it takes time. It's a process. It's like dating. And then getting it off the ground and getting over the fears. Once they figure out those two pieces, they're going to break any statistics that's out there right now. I think 95% of all businesses barely make it past the first year. I think and then it's like less than 40% of that 5% that remained make it past year 2 or 3. So you're an elite group if you are in business, regardless of how much revenue you're making, if you make it past 3 to 5 years. And so my goal is to change the spectrum around that and give people an opportunity, especially in this post-COVID era.
So you talk about one of the biggest challenges is hiring the right people. And that could be in any world. That could be if you're an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur within a company, right? What are some of the big pitfalls that you think people fall into that prevent them from hiring the right people?
Urgency. I think a lot of people just hire quickly because they feel pressured, they feel forced. They don't know what they don't know. And so you get the warm and fuzzy. And again, I equate everything back to dating. So my philosophy is hire slow, fire fast. It's not a philosophy I made up on my own. I actually stole that idea from another director I work with. But rinse and repeat, right? Things that are working for successful people. And one of the things that I took away from that is I will never hire anyone, regardless of the position, that whether it's an hourly minimum wage position or a salaried general manager position, I will never hire anybody without going on 3 dates with them. And so the way that I've always viewed it is, again, just like dating, how often would you marry somebody on a blind first date? Probably won't. It happens at times, but then you get whatever comes with it, right? Sometimes you get winners and sometimes you end up in annulment, right? But for the most part, you want to make sure that you're giving yourself an opportunity to make sure that that person is going to show the same face 3 consecutive times. Just like if you were to go date someone, the first date, they're going to look amazing. They're going to be out there. They're going to show the best version of themselves, right? Because first impressions matter. But then the second date might not be as conversational. The third date, maybe they're showing up late and showing these weird tendencies you may not necessarily like or be accustomed to. And so I think it's really important to just hire slow, ask a lot of questions. But the biggest part of the hiring process is less about the qualifications, believe it or not, to me. It's more about their personality and can I gel with them? I would hire someone who has the potential with the right mindset, with a little bit of experience, than hiring somebody with 20, 30 years of experience with a almost deflated personality and a little bit toxic just because they have a lot of experience and they have a lot of connections. I'd rather find someone who's a little bit hungry and more modest, but wants it versus needs it. And then you just kind of go from there.
Yeah, I had a friend who used to call it small feet, big shoes, right? So
Yes,
you're hiring people that you know can grow into those shoes that you know they could be.
absolutely.
Yeah, and talk about like right fit, right? If you got too big of feet and the shoes are too small, it's uncomfortable for everybody. So I like that idea of like fire fast too, right? Because your team can see the toxicity if somebody isn't really working out.
Yeah, especially when you're thinking about high performing teams, you have a lot of individuals that are all running and gunning and going as fast and aggressively as possible. And you have
Yeah.
to stay on top of it as a leader. As a leader, you think it's the dream team, right? If they're playing basketball, everybody's going to hit their shots, everybody's going to win. It's a dream team, right? They're always going to grab the gold medal. The problem is holding a team like that together is a lot harder than people realize. And
Yep.
so, in order to keep a team that way consistent, like a locomotive that's full of coal and gas and diesel going nonstop, you have to make sure you're constantly feeding them. And part of feeding them is making sure that whoever you bring onto your team complements and fills those non-strengths that exist within the team.
Yeah, I love that. What's something that you learned recently that you feel is like really important and worth sharing?
There's really two things I can honestly say. One thing is that as part of my development, my last organization gave me an opportunity to do something called strengths finding. So I was working with Gallup, Clifton Strengths, and it really outlines when you're living in your best strengths and you start being, you can be a lot more productive in your life. But if you feel like you're draining or you're not feeling as productive, you're probably living in your non-strengths. So I would encourage everyone, regardless if it's that tool or some other tool, to really start to identify their strengths and how they can implement them in their day-to-day roles. The other thing, and refers to the one thing, is a book that I'm a huge fan of. It's the one thing. I probably have read it or listened to it a combination like 20 times. Uh, and in fact, probably multiple times a year, whenever I feel like I'm out of it, I'm not clicking, or I'm trying to do too much, it's usually
Yep.
because I'm not focused on one thing. I'm not giving myself giving that task 100% of my best efforts. And as a result, again, granted, other things get pushed to the side. By really focusing on one thing and giving it your full attention, you can do so much more. And so I always recommend, even especially as leaders and managers, managing big teams, 16, 17, 40 people, 8 people, it doesn't really matter the quantity, but you're carrying the life and professional lives and the burdens of all these
Mhm.
individuals. So it's going to be really important to really set the right boundaries, but focus on one thing at a time and be as task oriented as you can to achieve whatever goals you're trying to hit.
How have you used that same philosophy in being the best family man that you can? Because you have that in your title, right? Of that
Yes.
you're a family man, right? So I'm assuming you're taking some of these things and feeding it into your personal life, and how does that work for you?
It's a struggle at times. At my last role, I traveled about 80% of the time. I think one year I had, according to Marriott, 280 nights in a hotel.
Uh,
That's a lot, right? In the 365 days. And granted, some of that was vacation with the family, but nonetheless, like that's still a lot of time that you clock away from your family. And being in the military, having deployed multiple times, there was a lot of sacrifice and time lost. So I'm really intentional now as I kind of look through my current lens of that I'm in right now, is to focus on making sure that I time block family time. So little things that go a long way for me that are extremely important. Um, my wife and I, and we were talking yesterday, I'm really big on making sure that I make breakfast for my kids every morning, right? Because I can't control the rest of my day, but making sure I'm up, getting them off to school, watching them on the bus, or physically dropping them off, that's really important to me. At least I got that part of my day. Making
yep.
sure I stop my day, my lunch break, or whatever you want to call it, around that 3 to 4 o'clock window so I can talk to them about their day if I can't physically be home and understand what's going on. And then try to get home at a respectful time where I know that they're still up. I can at least get them squared away. Maybe I miss dinner, but at least I'm with them during those phases, and making sure I time block time throughout the weekend, or at least one day where we can just be a family. Now, this
Yeah.
isn't, I have kids all ages, right? 5 kids, a couple 19-year-olds and a 2-year-old. So when I say family time, that doesn't necessarily mean we're all together kumbaya, because they want to be here, they want to be there, they want to do their own thing. But just knowing that I'm physically present in the home and we can make fun, poke fun, have snacks or something like that along the way, that means a lot to me and it means a lot to them.
Yeah, and I've got two kids myself, not five, but two, and similarly, I do my best to do drop off, right? And because
Yes,
sitting in the car line, I learn so much, about what they're excited about for their day,
yes,
and even when I'm on the road, because like you, I travel quite a bit. Like we purposely try to even FaceTime in the morning, right? Because I want to make sure I'm sending them off. That's like that special time of sending them off for their day. So I think they remember
absolutely.
that. At least I hope they remember that. I guess I'll know in,
And I will
10
tell you, they
years.
definitely do, because there's even when I'm on the West Coast and I live in the East Coast, that's a 3 hour difference, right? So when they're getting up for school, it's 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm usually calling them. The room is still pitch black, but you can barely see whatever's like the moon shining off my face coming through the window or the light coming off the phone. And they're like, "Why are you awake?" And I'm like, "Because I want to see your face."
I want
They're
to
like,
see
"Your
you.
eyes are almost closed." I'm like, "It still doesn't matter. I'm hearing your voice, seeing your face. I'm there." And then I'll get a text throughout the day saying, "Hey, Dad, how are you?"
Yeah.
Or something like that. And you're right, those carpool lines or the drive home, especially as your kids get older, that's the best conversation you have because as soon as they get out of the car, they're back in their own zone. So I
Right.
cherish those moments as much as I can, and I think they do truly appreciate it.
I love that. Um, what's something that has improved your quality of life you wish you had started sooner?
Establishing boundaries. So you
And
had
keeping
Dr.
them.
D.
Just to,
Huh?
just to quote Dr. D, right? It's one thing to
That's
establish, you got
it.
to keep them.
Exactly. So obviously Dr. D was on, phenomenal woman, phenomenal person, personally and professionally. I actually brought it to my organization to be a keynote speaker for a big event. This was about 2 years ago. And this is right around the time she started really pushing out about people being burnt out and not really respecting their boundaries. Living in the corporate America world, working for 7 years with a medical device company, I was go, go, go. I worked 365, didn't really matter. Even on my weekends, I was still working some capacity, checking emails, responding to things. Even when I try to go on vacation, biggest pet peeve my family had was I did not disconnect. And I do have trouble disconnecting. And that's something I'll continue to try to work on as I continue to get older and, go through my life phases and as I go through it. But the best thing that I did, it took me 6 years leaving after I had already started with the organization. We went on vacation to Hawaii with the family. And my boss reiterated to me, he was like, "You're not even going to receive an email. If anything comes your way, I'm going to see it. I'm going to cut it off. I don't want to talk to you." And my team was also, he even told my team, "Hey, leave him alone." And aside from the Merry Christmases, I actually stopped one day and I looked around. I was like, "I haven't checked my phone."
That's awesome.
And my family was like, "Yeah, we haven't seen you on your phone." And they noticed it. And I realized that finally started applying the principles of things that I had learned, establishing boundaries, having respect for your own time, and the time of other people is extremely important. And I felt so recharged, so rejuvenated. It really reduced whatever burnout I was feeling because as a high performer, as leaders, we are so constantly going in one direction. We don't realize the red flags and how many stoplights we're passing as we're experiencing burnout until we hit a wall. And then we don't know
Yeah.
how to recover from it. And
Yeah.
so it's so important to establish boundaries and reduce burnout as much as you can.
And the sooner you do that and create that habit, the better, right? Because if
Absolutely.
you wait until like 20 years into your career, as somebody who knows, when you talk about hitting a wall, it is truly hitting a wall.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, what experience in your life really had a huge, profound impact on you and your career?
I don't appreciate as much as I should, but it was during a time where I was transitioning so I was active duty Air Force and they were kind of downsizing our career field. I was a personnelist at the time, and personnelists in the Air Force, they make ID cards, they manage records, they process orders, they help with like casualty affairs, a lot of just administrative work. And they were rechanging and restructuring the organization, and they kind of put me in a weird position where they're like, "Well, we're kind of moving your position, so you can either go to Texas, I forgot what other place, or you can transition out from active duty and go into the reserves and become anything you want." And so I was like, all right, that's different. A reservist versus active duty. I kind of get to live the best of both worlds, civilian life and military life. And one of the jobs that was offered to me was a cardiopulmonary specialist.
Hmm.
Now, growing up, I hated science. I never thought about medical. There was nobody medical in my family. I don't even think I knew of somebody who knew somebody that was truly medical other than like
Mhm.
my primary care physician. No nurses, nothing like that in our family. So to think about that, even when I talked to like family and friends who knew, they were like, "You're going to go medical? You're not." Ugh. But then I realized it's the Air Force, right? They're going to teach me and train me and make sure that I'm ready for it. And so I took a leap of faith on myself. And I didn't realize this until recently, because had I not become a cardiopulmonary specialist, I would never have become a respiratory therapist. I would never have been exposed to the healthcare world or traveled the world or done some of the most rewarding and fulfilling things I've ever done in my entire life. And so that's really kind of set me forward, overcoming some fears and concerns. I learned so much execution and discipline during that phase, because every night after school was done, I went back to my hotel room and I studied. Even if I knew the stuff, I mean, I studied, and I never studied a day. I went through college, I didn't even study, right? But in the middle, I was so fearful of failure that
Yeah.
I was able to leverage that fear as a fuel and ammunition to make sure that I succeeded. And it was the best and most rewarding thing ever, because that opened so many doors. And even now, when the phone rings, there's opportunity to present itself because I'm a leader in the healthcare field. And those are not very often and few and far between.
Oh, I love it. I love it. This has been a great conversation, Eddie. And I know there are going to be people that are going to want to connect with you, that your message has resonated with them. Either they've got a business and they want your help and making it better, moving from that I, right, to actually having a team.
Yes.
I'm going to share your information here on the screen, but can you just tell our listeners what's one of the best ways for people to connect in with you?
Absolutely. So the websites are there. There's two sides to what I do from a business development, business coaching side. One of it is really just a fundamental educational component, structure, format, getting you set up for success. And then the other side is understanding the value of money from the business perspective. So if you are leaning on the side where you're a business owner and you're struggling to understand business credit, access to funding, or anything like that, you can find us at a website at getfundedfaster.com, or the Instagram page, Biz Credit CEOs. If you really are just trying to understand how you can be a better leader, a better entrepreneur, just really trying to understand the game of business, whatever the capacity is, then I would encourage you to check out easy.biz, or my Instagram, business_made_easy, just the same way it appears on the TV behind me. And I'd be able to definitely reach out to you. I handle all of my Insta messages that come through, or DMs. I'm dating myself, right? Insta messages. But reach out to me and we definitely can connect. I offer free consultations. They're typically supposed to be 30 minutes. They always turn to an hour. And really, they're not consultations with a sales pitch. It's just really focused on giving you at least 3 ideas, 3 tools within that time frame, so you can go out and execute, so you can be successful.
I love it. And for those that are listening, easy is EAZI. So that's EAZI.biz is what he's referencing there. So, I wrote down some things that I thought were great nuggets for our listeners. And, one was you started getting your education by pouring yourself into books and podcasts and things like that. You've got to be open to the right role, right? And so that I think that's interesting, because a lot of people maybe think that they have to go after a certain title or whatever, but instead of focusing on, is it the right role for you? As a leader, you got to pour into others. You've got to be able to make that pivot from mission first to people first. And then, you know, hire slow, fire fast. I think that's also a really great thing for new leaders to learn when you're having to build a team or change people on a team. And then time blocking, right? That time blocking is not only important within your day-to-day business life, but also your personal life, and making sure that you remove any distractions. So I think you referenced a book called The One Thing. So you're focused on that one thing in that time block that you're wanting to be focused on. That will go so much further with your business, but also your personal life, all of which we know interacts and impacts the other. So those are just some of the nuggets I took away. I'm sure there's a million more if you go back and re-listen to it. Thank you so much for joining us today, Eddie. I've really enjoyed getting to know you and sharing your story.
I appreciated the time. I'm hopefully that it makes an impact on someone out there, at least one person. But hopefully everybody's continuing to tune in to you and subscribe and continue to follow. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity.
Thank you for tuning into Might in Motion. If you learned something about motivation, momentum, mindfulness, or might, please like, comment, and share. Thank you.